I ever told you the time I fell into the charm of a man with seafoam green hair from coastal California? No? Yeah, it's just a story for another day. So today's Valentine's Day, or at least it will be when I upload this video. And while everyone else is getting in touch with their significant others and giving them little gifts, I'm sitting here in the middle of the night yelling at a camera, pretending to get drunk off of sarsaparilla. I don't know about you, but I'd be a great boyfriend. So, what better way to explore the deeper complexities of human interaction and, intimacy than to talk about a video game genre that literally has nothing to do with that whatsoever. If you're a person who's even a little bit familiar with, video games or that sort of stuff, you've probably heard of the term dating sim. Now, the term dating sim has been used in many different connotations. They mostly pertain to like visual novels and that sort of stuff. But the most common thing about them is that basically the only reason that a lot of them are popular is because they involve hot people doing hot things while having the collective personality of a cold fish, which isn't a demonstrably bad thing, but I would just be kind of hesitant to call it a dating sim because there's a term that defines that way better. It's called porn. But I kept my eyes peeled for anything that seemed to be interesting, and then one day I stumbled upon, I kid you not, the literal epiphany of the dating sim. Maybe not just the best dating sim ever created, but the greatest video game of all time. But we're not talking about that one. LuGame, Lunchtime Games Club, is one of many games I stumbled upon in my descent into the darkest depths of the darkest dungeon of the dating sim genre. Well, not the most egregious visual novel I've ever played. It's definitely more on the average side of the scale, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway. Because fuck you. I wanted to make a video for Valentine's Day and it was either this or Monster Prom. And in hindsight, I probably should have gone with that Monster Prom. In LuGame, Lunchtime Games Club, you play as the main protagonist who through a series of coincidences becomes a part of the games club where you befriend a cast of characters. Tifa, your childhood friend and ex-competitive gamer girl. KT, the games club's president who pretends she's a robot for some reason. Stacy, pompous student council president and daddy's girl. Who wrote that? Who the fuck wrote that? And Alex, Stacy's best friend and a personality about as cold as ice. The game's beginning is basically just kind of like a linear introduction to get you to be more familiar with the cast and, that sort of stuff. But it's technically a lie. The beginning isn't linear. The entire game is. Within the first few minutes of the game, Stacy shows up and offers you a chance to join the student council because she likes you for some inexplicable reason. Now, you're given 3 ways to respond. I would rather eat my own hand, I need to be drinking first, or sure, why not? Now, which one of these options do you think will allow you to join the student council? The answer is none of them. It's not just that the story has a set path where Act 1 will always lead to Act 2. It's more of like any and all choices you make in the game are completely meaningless. Except for one, which is a shame because the introduction has some neat parts to it, but you gotta just replay the same thing over and over and over again, and nothing changes at all, which actually brings up the next section of things to speak on. So you might be asking me, Joseph Giuseppe, SpaceInvaderBoy, why are you talking about game design in a visual novel? Well, sure, programming might be easier for a visual novel, but have you fucking programmed a game at all? Do you know how fucking complicated programming a fucking game is to begin with, let alone a fucking visual novel? Also, game design includes a lot of other factors aside from just programming, but what I want to talk about is the art, the graphics, the stuff you're looking at most of the time aside from text. And to put it simply, the art is good, but it is inconsistent. When you're talking to the characters, they have different facial expressions to show what sort of emotion they're supposed to be having. Happy, sad, big, mad. The thing is, in LuGame, they will use some facial expressions for multiple emotions, which sometimes works, but most of the time doesn't. But I mean, the art for the characters themselves is pretty good, well drawn, nice colors, a good bit of personality to the designs, but they vary, especially in the CGs. But while inconsistent, it is good, along with the backgrounds, because while the characters are 2D, the backgrounds are 3D. Why? Well, because they were made by a different artist.
But unlike the character art nitpick, you can go from quaint high school classroom to a man has fallen into the river in Lego City. I'm sorry, just some of these backgrounds look like as if they belong in a PlayStation 2, and the game may try its best to distract me.
I don't know, babe. I don't know what's more unreal. Those boobs or that fucking bodega.
But overall on LuGame's game design, I'd have to say that it's pretty okay for the most part. But the last thing I would touch on is probably the writing. It's okay. There's some good stuff there, a bit of good comedy, a bit of empathetic writing here and there. But some of it's pretty...
Just a little word of advice to anyone who's new. Tifa's the sweetest person I know, but put a controller in her hands and nice time's over.
Mr. Booze, Mr. Booze, Mr. Booze, Mr. B-double-O-Z. That sure spells booze. You will wind up wearing tattered shoes if you mess with Mr. Booze. Don't mess with Mr. Booze. Don't mess with Mr. Booze. Don't mess with B-double-O-Z if you've been...
So, after spending some time with the cast, KT manages to organize a club field trip to an anime convention. Stacy uses this opportunity to flaunt her wealth by buying rooms at a hotel the group can stay at for the trip with the intention of throwing a party there. And now, after having your bizarre experiences at the anime convention, you now find yourself at the party, with Tifa going off to a gaming competition at the convention, Alex sitting quietly in a corner, KT having a conversation that you can't participate in, though I would question why you'd want to, and Stacy being completely hammered while flirting with a random person. The game then allows you to decide who to talk to. But be careful who you choose, because after having all of your previous choices be made completely pointless, it is at this pivotal point with no foreshadowing or buildup that your decision will arbitrarily determine which alternate romantic timeline you're shoved into. So you might be asking, which is the best route? Well, it depends. Would you rather deal with a character you don't know, an annoying character who you don't know, or a good character? If you pick the last one, congratulations! You picked the Stacy route. In order to really talk about these characters, we have to ultimately break down the mountains of tropes the game uses. But where do they come from? Would you like to take a guess? The similar art styles, the oblivious main protagonist, the Japanese high school setting, the love triangle bullshit, the shy childhood friend who has secret feelings for the main character. It's very obvious what inspiration was used for this game, but it's the writing equivalent to taking everything you've watched from anime and then stuffing it into a blender. Not very deep, but then again, that's what you get when you borrow your tropes from Japan. But tropes and cliches by themselves aren't good or bad. It's how they're used. So how effectively does LuGame use them? Well, like everything else I've mentioned, it varies a lot. Let's take Alex as an example. She's a cold person who tries to maintain a veneer of perfection to everybody around her, but throughout the game, she sometimes slips up, revealing a different part of her personality. Her route simply involves getting to know her through wacky hijinks. We learn more about Alex's likes, dislikes, and motivations as a character, and while there are definitely better written characters, and the romantic connection between her and the main character feels a little hamstrung, it manages to feel genuine while still being lighthearted. Alex might not have the most original personality or the deepest characterization, but they have enough charm and good writing that I think they're a good character at least. I'll tell you who isn't though. Tifa fucking sucks. I don't know how choosing Tifa's route caused the writing to become actual garbage, but the fact that all of the terrible writing in said route always comes in when Tifa is involved just goes to show how utterly shallow she is as a romantic interest. They set up things that could have created a story that made Tifa an actually interesting character to interact with, but they just chucked it out the window for the most bog-standard romantic story I've ever had to read through. Out of every other character, Tifa is the most uninspired personification of tropes in anime, and I hate her for it. So that just leaves Stacy. You know, the egotistical, mean-spirited devil that has been tormenting you for the entirety of the game. So, you know, it makes the most logical sense that Stacy is the best character in the whole game.
You think I'm kidding? You think I'm kidding, but you're wrong!
Unlike all the other routes, actual things happen. Stacy gets her privileges revoked. Alex leaves her to the wind, and you're such an unsympathetic idiot that you make her cry. But because of this, Stacy takes her headstrong personality and turns it into determination to improve herself as a person. Improvement that is exclusive to her route. The writing's good, there's actual romantic development, and you get to experience Stacy's character arc over the course of her story, and it's honestly the best in the whole game. And then you bone her. And therefore, on my tier list for best route, Stacy takes top tier. So that's LuGame. Tune in next time when we talk about...
What? You thought we were done? You thought this was over? It's only the beginning! There's still more, motherfucker!
Well, I guess it's time to talk about the final route.
I Dated a Robot was a bonus route added to the game at some point where you get to go through the story completely removed from any and all events that happened in the base game. But in it, you get to interact with the fourth and final character of LuGame, KT. The story goes that you're hanging out with the members of the club when a conversation gets into very weird territory, and then through a series of events, you're roped into an experiment being conducted by KT who wants to learn
What is love?
A question I've been asking myself for 15 years. Why am I so lonely?
The experiment in question involves going on 3 practice dates with KT based off of each ideal date from a different cast member: a movie theater, a cafe, and an amusement park. And no, you don't have the choice to say no, as always. Overall, it's pretty standard affair. It has its moments, along with a lot more writing errors than usual. But my one true complaint about this bonus route lies within the fundamental problem I have with KT as a character. Now, KT's character is that she says she's an android.
I wonder where they got that idea from.
But in the context of the game, KT isn't a bad character, unlike some people, but the issue lies in that despite being the same age as all the other characters, everybody, including the main protagonist, treats her like a child, which is kind of weird, but then the context of the bonus round sinks in. So yeah, a little iffy there.
That's about it. There isn't really much else to say. The bonus route is about on par with the base game. So my general takeaway is that LuGame is a very average experience. Now, that might not sound positive, but I think you need to understand. My experience with dating sims is about on par with a veteran of the Great War. There are things that nobody should witness in their lifetime. Buddy, I have seen some shit. So when I say that this game is a very average experience, I mean that in the most positive way I can put it. I mean, there's a lot of other things I could have played, but by comparison, there's a lot of other things I would be more willing to get rid of compared to this game. So there you have it. That's 30 hours of my life wasted that I'm never getting back. Moral of the story? I need to get a life.
Get back on the box! Get back on the box! Put in the box!